Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of Pokemon game dev series in Unity. So in this video we will add more objects to our scene and implement collisions. So first we'll add a tile map where we can put all our solid objects. Right click on grid, 2D object and tile map. I'll name this tile map as solid object and I'll create a sorting layer for it. I'll name the sorting layer foreground and make sure to put it between the player and the background. And let's assign it to the solid objects. So now the solid objects will be in front of the background but behind the player. Now let's paint some objects in this tile map. So I'll use the objects in this overworld tile set. There are many objects that we can use. So first we need to split this tile sheet into multiple tiles. So change the sprite mode to multiple, hit apply, and in the sprite editor click on slice, change type to grid by cell size and the pixel size to 16 by 16. We have already done this for all our sprite sheets. So now hit apply. This might take some time because there are so many sprites in this sheet. Okay, it's done now. Now we need to create a tile palette for this tile set. So open the tile palette window. And dock it here. And create a new tile palette. Just select this folder to save it. And finally just drag the sprite sheet into the tile palette. Again, I'll select a folder for saving the tiles. Okay, so this will take some time because there are so many sprites in the tile sheet. So I'll pause the video and get back to you once this is done. So it's complete. So now we can select a tile and paint on the tile map. Just make sure that in the tile palette, the active tile map is solid objects. So I'll select this house and add them to the solid objects tile map. So you can see it's in front of the background layer and it's also behind the player layer. This is because it's in the foreground sorting layer. So I'll place another one here. Okay, so we have some solid objects now, but if we test the game, you can see that I will be able to walk through the house. So let's add collisions and block the player from walking into solid objects. So first, we'll create a layer. I'll call it solid objects. This will help us when checking for collisions. And I'll assign it to the solid objects tile map. Next, we'll add a Tilemap collider 2D to our solid objects tile map. Now you can see that there are many colliders in the scene. So this will work fine, but having collider for each of the tile is not an efficient way of doing it. So we'll add another component called composite collider 2D. So this is a component provided by Unity that will help us to reduce the number of colliders of an object. So we need to change the geometry type to polygons. And in the Tilemap collider 2D, make sure to check the used by composite. Now if you test the game, you'll see something really strange. Okay, so houses are falling down. This is because when we added a composite collider 2D, Unity also added a rigid body. We can fix this problem by changing the body type to static so that it won't be affected by the gravity. So now if you play the game, the houses won't actually fall. So now let's go to our player controller script. So in the player controller script, before we call the coroutine to move the player, we need to check if the target position is actually a walkable tile. So let's create a function called isWalkable. So this function will take the target position and check if the tile at that position is walkable. So inside this function, we need to check if there is a solid object at the target position. So we can do that by using physics2d.overlapCircle function. So the first parameter is the position we need to check, which is target position. And the second parameter is the radius of the circle that we need to check. So our tile is actually 1 unit, so 0.3 would be fine. So in the third parameter, we can pass the layer of the object that we want to check. So remember, the solid objects tilemap is in the solid objects layer. So we just have to pass that layer here. For that, first we need a reference to that layer. So let's create a public variable. We'll set it from the inspector. So I'll pass that to the third parameter. And if this is not null, it means there is actually a solid object in our target position. So in that case, the tile is not walkable and we want to return false. Otherwise, we'll just return true. Now, we will only call the move coroutine if isWalkable returns true. Now let's assign this layer to the player controller. And let's test the game. So you can see that I'm not able to walk on top of the house. So one thing to note is that for the collisions to work properly, the starting position of the player should be at the center of a tile. So if you click on the grid, you can see that right now the player is at the center of the tile. But if I just move the player somewhere, now you can see that it's not at the center. So now the collisions are now going to work properly. So to ensure that the starting position is at the center of a tile, you need to make sure that the decimal value of x and y coordinate is 0.5. So I'll change it to minus 4.5 and 3.5. So now the player is at the center of this tile. So one thing that Pokemon game does is they'll keep the player's position a little above the center of the tile to give the game a little more perspective. So I'll show you what I mean. So instead of keeping the decimal value of y at 0.5, I'll make it 0.8. Okay, so now the player is a little above the center of the tile. And when we do this, we need to make sure that we are using a small overlap circle. So I'll change it to 0.2f. So now if you test the game, you can see that part of the player goes on top of the house. So this will give like a better perspective to the game, and this is something that Pokemon games like to do. So I'll stop the video here. If you like these videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That'll mean a lot to me, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.